Hello, I'm Stephen Pitters, and I'm here at the Post Falls Library, and I wish to thank the wonderful people for allowing me the opportunity to come and read some of my poetry, show you some visual art that's related to the poetry and music as well. So let's get started. The poem I'm going to read is called Hope, an Immigrant Story. It's about my life coming from a different country, coming to this country, and living in this country in many areas of the country, ending up here in Spokane. Ta-da! But the main thing is that I started in my fourth book collaborating with visual artists, musicians, and with each book I collaborated with a different artist or artists. For this particular book, I collaborated with a good friend of mine, Jermaine Carlton, who is a local jazz musician, and he did the interpretation of the poem Hope, an Immigrant Story, which is a very long poem. I mean, it's 14 to 15 pages long, which my editor said, you won't be able to read that, So I'm just going to read to you about maybe two pieces, I should say 2 pages of the particular poem. And the other thing being, there are other people who participated artistically in the interpretation of the poem. Another good friend of mine, James McLeod, did a sculpture interpretation of the middle part of the poem, and my friend Megan Perkins did the visual art interpretation of the first part of the poem, which is the coming to the country. And there are other individuals who did other visual art interpretation of other poems in the book. Okay, so let's get started. And so this is the cover of the book. My youngest daughter, Hallie, did this, and the back cover is done by my good friend, Mike DeCesare from Pro Photo Northwest, and it makes it easier because he's godfather to my daughter, and so I get my pictures free. Okay, I also like to throw out at you that the folks from Art Chowder did an article about the book and myself, and you can see how serious this picture looks. Woo! So thank the folks for Art Chowder, and that came out in May, July 2019, issue number 21. So that having been said and been shared, let me start to read this particular poem, Hope, the Immigrant Story. I came as a youth, mystified to the American shore, and eagerly traipsed on its brick floor, trembling with great anticipation of what lay in store. This turning point in life would acknowledge so much more than where I lived before, Panama. From those harsh roots I was released. Parts of Central America's face back then was covered with a rash of poverty. Dreams and fears were the conductors who jointly challenged us to retaliate, to bolt. I saw myself through my father's eyes as intrepid pieces of luggage marked with a sticker of uncertainty. Arriving after 3 years of waiting and hoping, the initial view of the New York City skyline drops the jaw wide open. My gaze, expanding, takes a more concrete real estate than it has ever seen or imagined. At the tip of the base of my feet, my toes curl inward, overwhelmed. My eyes strain and rains unlimited tears. From above the clouds, the plane on the final approach begins its descent. Where I sat in row 24, I gripped my seat's plastic armrest. I see the greenish iron iconic woman standing majestically upon the water like a Roman deity. I needed no reason to resist nor defy the beat of my imagination. Though it didn't glow red, the Statue of Liberty's torch gestured nevertheless its welcome to us from below the airplane. like a command to all who see her to enter. The wild cemented jungle nears. My heart bursts with an overflow of childish excitement. I feel like jumping off the plane before it comes to a stop on the runway. I left my fingerprints in the plastic seat cover, the harbinger of my future there. Ecstasy fails to describe that instant. In spite of her flame being cold, she warms. Her fire burns the mind. It grows more intensely, as does the perception of her signal. The glaring binding materials forming giant houses and walls is a realization of our long-held ideas. Put them to rest is her one and only request. Now that we are here, like those who reach the dawn of this manufactured utopia, those of us who were free or otherwise come to believe, to maintain the hope, the faith which guided us to this great city's port at the foot of the Empire State, that is New York, New York. They left the yoke of the past in quarantine. I was 10 then. Okay, so that is Hope, an immigrant story. I want to move on and say that of late, I've been inspired by many different things, and one of which is inspiration listening to Western music. I've always liked Western music and Western movies, like many people do. And one of my favorite Western musicians is Marty Robbins, and he makes incredible songs. And listening to one of his songs, Big Iron and the Streets of Laredo, I was inspired to write a poem about it. So I'm going to read you this poem. Okay. Now, as with any poets, musicians, or visual artists, you go through many different iterations. So this is what the first draft looks like. And this is what the final piece looks like. So I'm going to read you this particular story, again inspired by the song Big Iron and the Streets of Laredo. It is called Angelita's Love. I came to the cowboy town of Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1844, when youth sprayed itself on my face. The life in life was Christmas each day. The years then betrayed me, passing ever so quickly. I aged into manhood before I could remember the things I did except Angelita's love and her beautiful glow. She sparkled with such intensity. Her beauty placed the sun on its heels shortly after each day's break. When evening conveyed its presence, the silvery stars came out to shine, dotting the night's carpet above with their shimmering twinklings. They too had to defer to her notable calling, being secondary, falling from their celestial place of majesty. My eyes chased hers. Many other eyes chased hers, but mine only her gaze confirmed. We were drawn into oneness and felt the strength of gladness. Our world twirled whenever we neared each other. We acted like red robins chatting, louder and louder. It became as the scale of the octaves performed in uniform precision. Seeing and hearing us being jolly, the crowd gathered and lent their encouragement for the articulation of the two lovers' spirited decision. Jealousy, unfortunately, invaded their party With gross anger and a rude challenge, Esteban found himself unable to decline. The ruffian's name was Jose. He was a brutish fellow that carried a Colt 45 on his hip and is known to many as a dangerous, rowdy mugger. Death had followed him from place to place. They faced off at 20 paces. He drew his pistol a minute before high noon and tasted a mouthful of dirt and blood 2 seconds thereafter. Esteban's iron bullet pierced the bully squarely in his chest. In the blink of an eye, Angelita cried, for I too bled from my side. The spectacle became known as the Ballad of Angelina's Honor. Though I lived that day to see the setting sun, I had to leave and be forever her man without a home after the terrible deed was done. So there is my Western interpretation of one of, or actually two of Marty Robbins' songs kind of fused together thematically. Now, I have one more, and again, it's a Western type motif, but spun around in a different way. Okay, this particular one is called The Avenger. All right, here it is. The Mustang drove through the hamlet on a quiet Friday morning. Nothing there stirred. Sleep still guarded the precious night in most houses filled with inhabitants. The red and white metal body that slowly moved said hello, though no one there responded. The blonde with stunning blue eyes, it seems in daylight surely would have sparked a gasping sound or a query from male or female there in town. Her aura said more than howdy. An intriguing force surrounded her. She parked the sports car on a side street and unfolded her long, sleek legs from its front seat. 6 feet tall, she emerged and began walking, spiked heels speaking. The heads of some turned dumbfounded. Others heaved and thought, is she a movie star here in our little town of Auburn? 8 months ago, a suave gentleman also had arrived. He as well carried a powerful magnetism. His impact was sudden, though he lived in quiet retreat. Many there thought he perhaps was hiding from the law. His appeal began to affect the pulse of the ladies whenever he walked past them. The town also started to become more active, especially at nighttime. The locals started staying out late, dancing, carousing. The morals of the residents shifted into debauchery. Fighting became a new behavior among the couples. Relationships exploded. Child and spouse abuse increased. The deterioration of the community persisted. The negative change in these common dwellers grew and grew. They didn't know just what to do. Their placid lives before is now upside down and running round and round into the ground. A curse had befallen them, so they thought. They could not see nor realize that the devil had inserted himself into their midst and was tearing out their roots like a swarming locust eating the corn stalks in the field. The message of this evil behavior reached the Most High, and the archangel was dispatched to intercede. She located the wrongdoer and drove to his farmhouse. It started rattling. A wild, piercing yell arose. To the average soul, this overwhelming sound would have frozen their will. The angels stood there calm, very still. From the chimney, a raging plume of fire swirled 50 feet upwards and upwards. Her detonating words were these: "You have been commanded by the Lord God to cease." The funnel in an instant returned to earth in a gentle cloud of ash. The small pile lay at her feet and blew away when her immense wings flapped twice. She entered the red car, mashed the accelerator. The automobile moved down the country road in a burst of speed and drifted off into the sky. The village returned once again to the peace and quiet among its friends. Okay, and those are the poems that I would wish to share with you, beginning with something in my from my sixth book, and moving to collaborate with something in books yet to be published, but will be published by this time next year in 2022. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you will continue to do so, since I have been fortunate to be invited to do other readings of this type. So see you again real soon. Thank you. Steve Peter saying goodbye for now.